What do you think that it was?
I don't think that he was attracted to me from the second we met each other. He gave me zero validation.
I think he's feeling you more than you're feeling him.
Maybe I'm the one that made the mistake of saying yes. I'm the one that made the mistake of saying yes.
I mean, I'm really happy. I think that things happened the way they were supposed to for me, and I'm really in a great place.
Good for you.
At peace. I'm really in a great place.
Good for you.
At peace.
Before true self-worth kicks in, we go through this awkward phase where we are stumbling around trying to figure out who we are and what our worth is. We act and behave and speak in slightly delusional ways that we think are making us come across as someone who knows their worth. Yeah, like with Aliyah, for example, and how she talks about self-love, which I'm not sure is altogether there. Look, I love Aliyah. I think she's very sweet. And she's come a long way, and I'm sure she learned a lot by watching herself on the show. But this self-love that she talks about, I don't think is altogether there. Because when she talks about boundaries, especially during this press tour, during the interviews that she did with Cameron, from Lauren and Cameron and Jessie Woo, she talks about Lydia and how Lydia needed to be told more than once not to cross boundaries, and how shocking that is. Like, how once is enough.
Boundaries. I'm like, ma'am, I said I don't want to hear it.
But also, you could say the same thing to you, like once is enough for you. If you have to tell someone more than once not to cross your boundaries, that's also on you. Yet you stayed and let her do that to you. If you look back at Aliyah's time on the show and how that moment when Lydia was just like verbal diarrhea, all that stuff about Uche, Aliyah was sitting there taking it in with a smile, just nodding. I mean, yeah, maybe she's saying, oh, she doesn't want to hear it, but she's sitting there taking it in. Again, this is not to say that Aliyah is a bad person. It's just that you have to take ownership of your part and how you let people walk all over you. And I can't help but think of Aliyah's job as an ICU nurse. You know what they say about nurses, right? They're like the angels of self-sacrifice, and the comfort of the other person is their number one priority, especially a nurse in intensive care unit. So it makes sense, like Aliyah's character is all about making other people feel comfortable, which is again very commendable and very beautiful, but it's also like, And I guess what we heard from Aliyah at the reunion can be called a manifestation. It's kind of like a fake it until you make it kind of a thing, where this whole like self-love and her being in a perfect relationship right now, where with a person who honors her, which might be true, but it feels like she's kind of willing that future that she wants rather than already being in it, which again is something very beautiful. But I don't think she's altogether there, because when she describes the new man in her life, who we saw somewhere, I think on Instagram or TikTok, a glimpse of R&B cruise, that's where they met, and also he's very chivalrous. She does a double shrug.
I'm in a beautiful, loving relationship now with somebody who treats me like a queen.
So where'd you guys meet?
We met on an R&B cruise. He was very chivalrous.
Yeah, body language experts would have a field day analyzing that if she really means it. And look, I'm not saying Aliyah is fake by any means. Like, she's really adorable and sweet. But I'm just saying that kind of self-worth that she's talking about, the self-love, is not fully integrated in her system just yet. She wants it to be there. But I do have to give her credit for the way she spoke about Uche and the past relationship when she was on the podcast with Jessie Woo.
The reason why I'm talking about it like this is because I want people to know you can go through stuff like that and come out to a place where you can say, you know what was it with me that made me be drawn to this? I need to hold myself accountable so that I don't repeat that mistake again.
Okay, love that for her. And also with Taylor, when I talk about these early awkward stages of self-love, why I think Taylor is there and how it manifests itself in Taylor, I think Taylor is at that stage where she's still projecting her lack of self-worth onto the other person, like blaming the other person for how she feels, or if she feels less beautiful or less lovable, it's because of what the other person did. And I know it's very tricky to talk about Taylor and JP, and I'm not by any means defending JP or he's amazing, because we're gonna get to him. But I think with Taylor, yeah, she was going on and on about how the problem is that he wasn't talking to her, that she had to pull it out of him. And this is what everybody is repeating on behalf of Taylor, like, oh my God, how could you live with someone who doesn't want to talk to you? But if you remember in Mexico, what she was telling Stacey is that it had nothing to do with him talking to her or not. She just wasn't into him.
I don't think it really has anything to do with like if he talks or not. A lot of this is like my fault too.
Yeah, I think Taylor wants to talk about self-love and how much she loves herself. And I think she's getting there, and probably again this experience and having to watch this experience probably will teach her a lot and is teaching her a lot and probably has taught her a lot. But I think the self-love that she talks about is not, I'm not sure I fully believe is like, again, integrated in all her body, like in every fiber of her being, like it is with Milton, who is really in love with himself in the best way possible. But I think Taylor wants to be. If you remember very early in the season when she was talking about her journey with self-love and how painful it is.
I don't think I truly loved myself. Sorry. I love myself now. I love myself now.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sold that she completely loves herself right now, but I love her and we all love her and I love you, Taylor, but I'm just saying that you still have a little bit to go. Come on now. If you remember also when they were in Mexico, she kept hounding JP for compliments, and when he'd give her a compliment, she would actually doubt him. But we're gonna get into all of that. But for now, I want to zoom out and talk about self-esteem because it's the theme of this video. So what is self-esteem? Self-esteem is this mind-made image that you have of yourself, that you've created of yourself, that your ego created of you. And when you have low self-esteem, it's when you have a bad relationship with this mind-made image that you've created of yourself. And sometimes we get a glimpse of awareness where we realize that we are the ones who are creating this negative self-image with our own thoughts, by comparing ourselves to others and not rising to this bar that we've set for ourselves. And then you start talking to yourself and calling yourself a failure because you didn't rise to the occasion or because you're not good enough. But what you fail to realize is that this image, this standard that you've set, is something your own mind created with your own thoughts. And the only way to be free is to actually start becoming aware of that. But my guest this week says it better than I ever could, and he describes self-esteem in his own very unique way, and it's none other than Eckhart Tolle, who I've lip-synced to many times before. And I'm gonna link a playlist of my Eckhart videos. But for now, take it away, Eckhart.
Yes, self-esteem. Many people seem to have a problem with that. It's very strange, self-esteem. Now, the human species is the only species on the planet, of course, that has a relationship with itself. But the cat doesn't have a relationship with itself. And even the most ugly-looking cat wouldn't have a problem with self-esteem. It hasn't created an image self. You always walk with a mental image of me, and often you don't like what you see. That's poor self-esteem.
Hey y'all, it's your drag therapist in denial, your favorite drag therapist, the only drag therapist on the internet. As I always say, I'm in denial so you can wake up. Before we get into this video, I want to quickly remind you of my show, the 6-month residency that starts next month on November 8th. So links below if you want to buy a ticket and come see me. It's a beautiful show where I play my mother, myself, my father, and it's lip syncing, stand-up comedy, and it's just something like you've never ever seen. And also after this video next week, I think I'm gonna review Jada Pinkett Smith's book. But for now, let's dive into the theme of self-esteem and how it's shaky in the very beginning for a lot of us, and we're using, of course, Aliyah and Taylor as examples.
You belittled me and made me feel less than I am.
Yeah, in the very early stages of developing self-esteem, it's still very messy in the beginning when you're still not grounded in yourself and who you are. And at that stage, when it's still shaky, you project all your insecurity onto other people. Like how at the reunion, Taylor was telling JP that he always belittled her and made her feel small. But her insecurity started way before, because if you remember in Mexico, when they first met and they were lying together in bed, she asked him, "What's your favorite thing about me?" And he was telling her it's her smile and her eyes. And the first thing she said is, "Are you lying?"
What was the first thing you noticed about me?
Your smile.
Are you lying?
And Taylor was always looking at JP with suspicion. Even before the reunion, when she was giving him that Shayna glare, even before that, she was always looking at him like, very suspicious, like, what, does he like me? Does he not like me? And it started way before the makeup comment. And if you remember, there was one moment where she broke down in tears and she was saying that the reason she's anxious and tense is because she feels like she made the wrong decision. And those tears were genuine.
I felt frustrated. Like anxious and like I made the wrong decision.
Yeah, the truth is always very simple, actually. If you need to say so many things to describe a situation, it's because you still haven't figured it out fully. But actually, when you understand something, the truth can always be summed up in 2 or 3 words. Trust me, you guys, on every area in our life. But anyway, that anxiety usually comes when we haven't made peace with what we want and what we don't want. Don't you recognize situations, whether it's romantic or friendship or business, where you're stuck in a relationship that you don't want to be in? You actually don't like dealing with this person, but you don't have the courage to end it. So you're constantly tense and picking up fights. And finally, when you provoke them enough into exploding, you have your reasons. Like, see? Now I can leave you guilt-free. But it's actually this guilt that you feel. It's fear of you being able to say, I don't want this, I don't want you. And this Taylor really did that. Like when they were in Mexico, and she was obviously feeling very uncomfortable. And that was the truth, that she's uncomfortable. And the truth would slip out. But then when she would talk to him about it, she would come up with all these things like, okay, we're not comparing to the other couples. And oh my God, this is not genuine. I'm doubting when it's not genuine. And every once in a while it would slip that she's actually uncomfortable.
The way I felt about you in the pods, I could have spent the rest of my life with you, and
So what do you think changed?
we're not where we should be. And then like after seeing other couples, happy, having fun. Like in the pods, it was like genuine. And here I just feel so uncomfortable.
I mean, she really projects her stuff on him, because when she was constantly like telling him that this comment about the makeup that he did is just an excuse, it's covering something much deeper. But excuse for what? That he doesn't like your personality? Like, I don't get it. What is this deep reason?
And then the whole makeup thing, that's not why our emotional connection went out the window. That's, for me, I just think that's an excuse.
It's actually an excuse for her, because she just didn't like him. She finally had her excuse that now he's talking to me in a way that I don't like, and now I have reason to leave guilt-free.
I tried.
Yeah, this type of denial will actually make you ignore reality. Like that moment at the reunion when she was living her fierce, independent woman moment and lecturing JP, don't ever do that to another girl. Like, don't make another girl feel unattractive.
Don't do that to another girl.
And then Vanessa asked the question.
For you, Taylor, you mentioned when you first saw him, you were also very transparent. You're like, look, he's got a gap in his teeth. I wouldn't normally go for that.
So were you attracted to him? But the truth is, she was never into him. Like, take that moment where they were first in Mexico, which would be the honeymoon phase. Because according to her, she was always trying, but he wasn't into her, right? But if you're really into this guy and you find him attractive, in this honeymoon phase that you're in, wouldn't you use every opportunity to be like close to him? Like when they went on that buggy and she was riding behind him, she wasn't even wrapping her arm around him. Like, this is a moment where if you're really into your man, like, this is a perfect excuse for you to have your arms there. She was like in the back. She never wanted to be near this guy. And then when they finally sat down in the forest or woods or wherever they were, and she told him like, so what are your fears? He actually said, my fear is that you're gonna leave me.
Fears.
That you're just gonna leave?
And she looked at him knowingly, like, because come on now. They both knew that she's out of his league. Like, Taylor is a babe. She's hot. And JP is JP, okay? Like, from the beginning, they both knew that she's gonna leave him. And if you notice that moment where he's like, don't give up on me, she's like, I'll try not to. Like, what?
Don't give up on me.
Try not to. Try not to.
And also, if you notice, when he told her his fear that you're just gonna leave, she's like, I'm not gonna just leave. Basically, in other words, I'm gonna leave, but I'm not gonna just leave. I'm gonna give you, like, notice. Come on now. Come on, Taylor. You don't like this guy. You never did, babe.
That you're just gonna leave?
But I'm not gonna just leave.
But I think the reason Taylor was constantly holding on and trying to make it work is, again, like most of them, like all of us, we're trying to not repeat the mistakes of our parents. There was a moment in the hot tub when she was telling him, she's like, I'm not going to end up divorced like my parents. Again, we're running away from these demons.
And I will not go through divorce because of my parents.
But instead of acknowledging that, what Taylor did is make it like her deep tea moment. Like, the reason she's upset with JP is because he belittled her and told her not to wear makeup. Girl, calm down. He was not... We're gonna get into his comments, but JP never like stormed into the room or into her life telling her what she can and cannot wear or put on her face. She kept hounding him, and he just like exploded. Again, with no tact or charm or charisma, because JP is JP. But he's not this controlling guy who's trying to like put you in your place and order you not to wear makeup. Girl, no. And this is something, by the way, that women and us, like gay men and queer people, tend to do, because We're fighting back years of oppression and patriarchy by the man. Now we just see oppression everywhere, even when it doesn't exist. Not every moment is an activist moment where you're gonna have to put straight men in their place. Girl, calm down. Have a Xanax. Yeah? Walk a dog in the park. Chill the fuck out. Like that moment in bed when the makeup thing came up and she was like, oh, so it's about the way that I look.
So the way I looked made you communicate differently.
But again, she's telling him, you're not gonna tell me what to do. And he's like, literally, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you what I don't like. And this is his taste. Again, he'd said it without any tact, but he's not like, yeah, he's not attacking you. You're hounding him to give you a reason of why things are awkward. And this came out. It's his truth that he doesn't like you with a lot of makeup. And yeah, this hounding that she did of him, like constantly asking him, why is it awkward? How are you feeling? What's wrong? What's going on? Like at every room, and even at moments he was trying to get out of it. Like at one point when they sat down when they were in nature and she was asking him, so how are you feeling? He's like, sweaty. She's like, I know, but this is not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about what's on your mind.
How are you feeling?
Sweaty.
But about everything else?
Feeling okay.
It's okay?
Yeah.
Is there anything that's been on your mind?
Girl, is there anything on your mind? And again, here he tries to lighten the mood by saying, you know, what's on my mind is that I like your freckles. Again, he's trying to, like, before he exploded, he was trying to give her hints that he likes her natural, like this.
You need to show your freckles more.
You're such a nut.
I like them.
But again, she's like, no, I want to talk about how things are awkward. And granted, things are very awkward between them.
Yeah, and it's freezing in here. Okay.
But if you notice from the beginning, he told her he hates being pushed into having a conversation.
I hate being forced to, like, make conversation.
And again, it's your right not to be with someone who doesn't want to talk. But if we look back on what you told Stacy, you said that it has nothing to do with whether he talks or not. You're just not into him. But anyway, he already told you that he hates being pushed into a conversation. And then when they were at the reunion, and he told her, like, I hate being hounded like this. And she was like, well, if you told me that you hated being hounded like this, maybe I wouldn't have done it. But he actually told you.
That's not the way to get me to open up, is to keep hounding me, saying, hey, this is awkward, do better.
If you would have told me, hey, stop hounding me about the same thing, I probably would have.
So again, it's deflecting and projecting our issues onto another person, which is what we do in the very early stages when we're trying to figure out our worth for ourselves. And again, I really want to stress here that I don't dislike Taylor. I find her very adorable and so cute and so pretty. And also that JP is a very awkward man. Let's talk about his makeup comments, by the way, which, objectively speaking, are kind of funny when he was like, your caked up face. Even when he first told her, she just couldn't help but laugh.
Yeah. Caked up face.
And then the faucet was open. He couldn't stop. Oh, but your makeup was all over my jacket. And you're literally putting on another face. It's like, JP, calm down.
I just dressed up and put on makeup.
A lot of makeup. I had makeup all over my jacket.
A lot of girls and women do that.
You putting on a face, like you're literally putting on a totally different face.
By the way, I'm gonna say something maybe a little bit, I don't know, controversial. It's just a speculation, right? But is JP on the spectrum? Because he's really incapable of lying. Like if you compare the other men on the season, they're all full of shit. Like Izzy, and even Chris, what's his name? Uche, of course. But JP is really incapable of lying. I mean, sure, again, no riz, as the kids say, no charm, no wit, no charisma, nothing, all right? But he actually is very truthful. Again, you can say, I don't want to be around a guy like this. If you notice at the reunion, Nick and Vanessa were trying to give him a lifeline. Like, so what you meant to say is that she's beautiful. And again, JP is like, yeah, but when I saw her, her face is just off-putting.
What you were trying to say was, I think you're beautiful without makeup.
Definitely the first time I saw her, it was a little shocking and off-putting.
Girl, this is not how we talk to a lady. You're off-putting. Like, calm down. And Stacy's face at that point is all of us. Really, it's like, did he just call her off-putting? But JP really reminds me of those kind of like people from the village. Not very cultured, not very like, just simple people. If you notice, by the way, also the way he kisses, this guy is really weird. It's like, Are you kissing your dog or your grandchild? Like, it's the unsexiest thing I've ever seen. And also, like, why I call him like simple or village person, it's like also the way he dresses, like super patriotic, everything, like the short, the socks, the shoes, JP, girl. But the point I'm trying to make is that JP is not this controlling, monster. I don't think so. Yeah, you don't want to be with him. I understand. You don't have to be. But he's not this guy that everyone's trying to make him out to be. I don't think so. And if you notice, even Taylor herself knows that JP is not a bad guy, because after she dumps him and gives him the ring, she herself said, "Do you want a hug?" Because she feels bad for him. Even the way she looks at him, like she knows.
You want a hug?
Yeah.
And even that very last moment at the reunion when the credits were rolling, if you notice, there was a moment where JP was, just talking to other people, and Taylor was like from the background, like looking at him. This is not a look that you look at someone you're grossed out by or like did you wrong. She's actually very curious about him because he's quite a curious character. Like, I'm telling you, either on the spectrum or something. There's something weird about this guy, but he's not a bad guy. It's not adding up. But to bring it back to the theme of this video and self-worth and how it's very shaky in the beginning, if you notice, there was a moment at the reunion where Taylor was talking about...
That's why I came on the show, was to fall in love with somebody emotionally. And that's what I did, but it just wasn't enough.
She came on the show because she wanted to prioritize emotion and spirituality over looks. Yeah, girl, like in theory, yeah, that's what we all want. But I don't think you're there yet. You care about looks. I mean, look at how much effort you're putting into the way you look. Which is, again, fine, you have every right to do that. But to kind of just say that you don't care about appearances because you came on the show, yeah, in theory, yes. But life is not theory, girl. But again, in those very early stages when your self-worth is still developing, it's so shaky that all you have to go by is comparing it to other people. And if you noticed in Mexico, she was really sinking in deeper into her, like the state of not liking JP because she was comparing herself to the other couples.
Why do you stress about other people?
I don't stress about other people, but there's couples here that are like so invested, and we're not. Everyone else is like, yeah, it's great. Yeah, we had some awkward this or awkward that, but other than that, it's fucking great.
Just keep looking forward. I'm never gonna give up.
Actually, Eckhart Tolle has a few words for Taylor on this matter.
And it is usually comparative. The self-esteem is comparative. How do I rate myself in relation to others? And that gives you the indication of where you are on 1 to 10, or whatever it may be. So self-esteem is connected with the mind-made me, lack of it.
So in this clumsy stage of self-esteem, this mind-made image of yourself is still very much connected to feedback from other people and pressures from the outside world. And Taylor is not the only one, because Aliyah is victim to that as well. And the reason I think Aliyah gives into the pressures and feedback from the outside world to a large extent is because she keeps going back to the people who hurt her, like Uche. She kept going back to him several times. And Lydia, who crossed her boundaries, she kept going back several times. And she always cites as pressures from the production as the reason for doing that. Yeah, not to blame her again, because I think Aliyah is a super sweet girl, very lovable, and her face is adorable. Even when she's talking, and those eyes, I like her a lot. But I think she still has some way to go before she can truly assert herself. Because if you notice at the reunion, when she was confronting Lydia, she had a couple of questions to ask. Because she was so nervous and working up the energy, and because she just wants to, she had this question for Lydia, but the question went on for a minute and she wouldn't let Lydia answer because it was almost like this teenager who just wants to get everything out. Yeah, I'm not fully sold on this idea that she knows how to assert herself very well yet.
And I would like for you to kind of speak on that, Lydia. You told multiple women that, can I finish my statement? You said you were hoping to run into somebody from your past. We had a conversation one-on-one outside of filming where you told me that you and Uche discussed coming on the show. And I just feel like it's better to just kind of be real about what happened and how you...
Because when you're truly strong and know your self-worth, you could just sit back like a queen. But she's not there yet, as a lot of us are not there yet. And again, during that press tour, like the interviews that she's doing online on YouTube, like the one she did with Jessie Wu, during that interview, Jessie asked her, like, why did you let Lydia cross your boundaries? She mentioned that she had a mentor who advised her, like when she goes on the reality TV, not to pop off, not to act out of character or be very aggressive. And that's why she let people cross her boundaries, or she didn't fight back all the time. Again, valid reason, but still, it's a little bit of an excuse, I feel.
I have a mentor who has worked in reality TV. And she told me before I went and filmed this show, don't act out of your character. Don't pop off.
Instead of just owning up to the fact that, yes, my boundaries were weak and I let people cross them. It's as simple as that. Because when you're still trying to find reasons, again, it goes back to deflecting and projecting onto other people a little bit. Because instead of saying, yeah, I still have a lot to learn, which she knows and she said several times, but that's why I say it's shaky, because she keeps saying conflicting things. Again, we love Aliyah, we stand Aliyah. But we're just pointing out and hopefully learning a lesson and recognizing in ourselves where we still need to learn. Because I always am caught off guard by situations where I don't know how to put my foot down and I let people walk all over me, even though I made progress in other areas of my life. And I'm thinking, my God, why did I let that slide? Because it's a journey. And the place where it really shows with Aliyah is how she was with Uche. And she kept going back to him. And she mentioned that a lot in the press tour, especially in this interview with Jessie Wu. Like, she gave many examples. Jessie was asking her questions, like, by the way, I love Jessie. She was asking questions like, Carl, like, why did you let that happen? Like when he called her a recent cheater and she went back to him, or when she again went back to him after when they met at that lunch after she left. Like, there were so many instances where she let him back in her life when we could all clearly see that he's no good. So let's go through a few of those examples. Like the first one, when Jessie brought up the whole recent cheater thing, and Aliyah said that the production kind of coerced her into going back to talking to him.
But it was just a lot of like, well, let's see, let's talk and let's figure it out. Let's see what maybe he was scared in the moment.
And there was another moment where Aliyah talks about how all the women, when they were in the pods, were saying, oh, hell no, about Uche. Yet somehow she fell prey to it. That tells you something about your boundaries.
At least 3 or 4 women came out and they were like,
Really?
I heard at least 3 or 4 of the girls say it's a no, like a hell no.
And there was also another very interesting moment that Aliyah mentioned. Back when they were in the pods, Uche was talking about Miriam, and he was just proudly telling Aliyah that he told Connor, the potential match for Miriam, to not go for Miriam because she's here looking for a sugar daddy. And still Aliyah thought it was okay to be with this guy. So this tells you what kind of like judge of character you are. And not just what kind of judge of character, that how easily persuaded you are. Because there was one moment where Jessie like told her like, so what about his hypocrisy, Uche, that he would call you a cheater and be so upset. And there was this thing that he had going on with Lydia and you still went back to him. So Aliyah says that, oh, because he told her, he begged her like a few times, and also he needed to say what he has to say about Lydia on camera. Yeah, but what does that have to do with you?
Why did you never ask him, Uche, how could you interrogate me for being a recent cheater, quote unquote, yet here I am. I gotta sit here and spend time with your ex who you recently slept with.
So let me tell you, the reason I even went and did that sit down was because he was basically begging me to go back on camera. I was still telling him like, this is how I feel, blah, blah, but I don't want to go on camera. He says, well, there's some things about Lydia that I want to share on camera.
And that's why I think someone like Aliyah still has a way to go before fully asserting herself. Because when you've had this long history of letting people talk you into things you don't want to do or say or be in places you don't want to be in, that stuff doesn't go away overnight. And that's why Eckhart actually has a couple of words to say to Aliyah about that.
If you spend a whole year affirming continuously that I love myself, and your house is full of little stickers, and wherever you look, you see I love myself, and you look in the mirror and look into your eyes and repeat that I love myself. To some extent, it works. To some extent. You have a better relationship with yourself.
But it's hard to sustain that because the other polarity, there's always a polarity, there's always an opposite in life, will soon kick in. Like the negative self-talk will kick in. And that's why I call this an early stage that needs to be crossed. Because this overly positive self-talk and self-affirmations cannot last forever. This kind of state that you're trying to convince yourself. And the reason why it doesn't last forever and it's temporary is because this mind-made self-image, it's a thought-made entity. It's not very secure. So sometimes it will be on your side and tell you all the positive talk and other times not. So the question is it possible for this mind-made entity to completely dissolve and for you to be completely yourself, to be truly yourself?
Yes, this is why we're here. This is the essence of our gathering. Many people live with a self that is very unpleasant, that creates a lot of trouble, a lot of problems, a lot of suffering, that continuously criticizes them, that continuously blames them, that continuously tells them they're not enough. And they live with that entity.
And what's crazy is that we continue relating to this mind-made, self-critical image and letting it beat us down. Because if you think about it, this voice that keeps criticizing you, if it was another person, you would run. You would have divorced a long time ago. Well, not if you were Aliyah. Because if you were Aliyah, you would probably stick around and let it beat you down a few more times before you eventually run. We feel you, Aliyah. We all have an Aliyah inside us. She can do it and we can do it. And this brings us to the end of the video and the end of the season. Can you believe season 5 came and went? My God, I know a lot of people thought it was messy, and it was messy and like unwatchable, blah, blah. But to quote Britney Spears,
you're really entertaining.
And yeah, I'm not gonna mention anything else that happened at the reunion because I already talked about Izzy and Stacey last week. And as for Chris, all I've gotta say is that I called it from my very first video. Talks about himself as a playboy, and that's what girls think of him. It makes me think,
Just off my looks, everyone kind of thinks I'm a playboy, kind of push girls to the side.
And yeah, please like, comment, and subscribe. And in the next few days, I think I'm gonna put out a poll on the community page, just asking people about, I'm exploring ideas of how to take the channel forward, what kind of videos I wanna do. Because of course, I'm always gonna do Love is Blind, and I'm gonna respond to things in the news cycle that are related to denial and delusion and love and relationships. But I'm toying with the idea of trying some in-depth stuff. I'm gonna put out a poll, so until then.
Here's to finding love and celebrating love. Take care, everyone.
Bye.